Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Covering both sides of the big issues with the analysis you trust on News Radio 1040 WHO.
Our next guest is Patty Olinger. She is the executive director of the Global Biorisk Advisory Council, or GBAC, which is a division of ISSA. It's the leading trade association for the cleaning industry worldwide. And Patty, first of all, thanks so much for being on our show today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You're also an expert on infectious diseases. So as people are getting their kids back into school over the last few weeks, of course, a hot debate over the last couple of school years about eligible kids, should they get vaccinated? Should they be forced to get vaccinated? How is that going to work out all over the entire country? So for you at this point, are all of these vaccinations safe, and have we kind of put that behind us?
Yes. I mean, we've had millions and millions of people now that have received this vaccine, and there's absolutely no doubt from a safety standpoint, when you look at it compared to even other vaccines that are out there or other medications, this is a very safe alternative for people to be able to use, and it's a piece of the puzzle that just protects not only individuals, but also their families and their communities as well.
Now, a lot of people that I know over the last few months have been COVID positive. In fact, Jeff Angelo on this particular show right out of the Iowa State Fair was positive for COVID-19, and he was able to recover, but he has been vaccinated. He talks about being boosted. He's caught up on all of that stuff, but it is still possible for that kind of infection, right? That isn't what a vaccine is even going to do for children, even if they all are vaccinated.
Correct. What it does is it does protect you from serious illness and or death. And it also, there is a correlation. There's people indicating that it protects against that long COVID that you're hearing about as well. And so, unfortunately, I mean, my fingers are crossed that they're going to come up with something that lasts longer than just the 4 or 5 months that they're talking about right now. That, their immunity wanes, whether it's natural immunity or whether it's that vaccine.
And a lot of that has to do with the way the variants continue to mutate as time goes on. With that being said, if their child has had COVID-19 recently, is it still a good idea to get a vaccine, or is that something that maybe, that natural immunity has kind of taken hold and it wouldn't make any sense to get the vaccine after you've been COVID positive?
That's something that, everybody is, Dr. Fauci says he's going to wait. He had COVID in June. He said he was going to wait 2 to 3 months, I believe, is what he put out in the news. Whereas the director for CDC says don't wait. So I think that part is a personal decision, is, from a standpoint of, depending upon your situation, do you have family members at home that are, immunocompromised? And I think that brings up even a more a bigger issue in that as we're sending our kids back to school, think about all the different things that you need to have in place. And from a parent standpoint, I'd be going to the schools and asking them if they've addressed indoor air quality and if they have really paid attention to surface disinfection and cleaning.
We're speaking with an expert on infectious diseases. Her name is Patty Olinger. Patty, I guess from my perspective, as somebody who, much like everybody else in society, probably is sick and tired of having to worry about this and thinking about this, but with so many people still testing positive for COVID-19, even though they are vaccinated and boosted, is there a timetable on this that you think that we'll, have this figured out? Like you mentioned, you're hopeful that there will be a more long-term situation that will, take place that will allow people to, not have to worry about, in another 6 months, there's a chance that you might need another booster if you're immunocompromised. Is there or is this kind of trending in a way that, yes, this is just part of our society that we're just going to have to, learn how to live with and deal with now, regardless of the vaccination status of the people around us?
I wish I had the crystal ball that really had the answer to this, but what we're looking at is I think this is a wake-up call for us. And when I mean a wake-up call is this isn't going to be the last epidemic or pandemic, and it may not be the last variant that we're dealing with, the current variant. And so to be able to look at the future, we've got to be able to accept the fact that we need to pay better attention to those control factors that we have control of. And they were things that we learned, wash our hands more often, If we're going into public spaces and, it's flu season even, I mean, a lot of people die of the flu, and there's a lot of business lost because of just the flu. And, we can do better. And we've seen that we can do better. And things, such as vaccination, learning how to clean correctly, it doesn't take any more time, but if we do it right, then we actually protect ourselves and others. And the indoor air quality issue is something that we just hosted a air symposium. And what we learned was just amazing from these experts that were out there, that if we monitor the air and then we put in place better systems, whether they're portable systems or even tied to the HVAC system, we can do a lot better and improve the air quality for the spaces that we live in.
That's one thing that I think we have gotten out of this, Patty, is the ability to recognize where some of our shortcomings in hygiene, both personally and in the spaces that we occupy, whether we're living there or working there, and trying to make that as healthy as possible, with a lot of kids that are jumping on the school bus, a lot of kids that are, carpooling if they're going to high school, maybe be picked up by some of their friends and head over to school, maybe taking another city bus to get around town. What would be some of the other tips to try to maintain that health and not worry too much about, yes, the vaccine is one conversation to have, but what can kids also do that's easy for them to remember at all ages to make sure that they stay as healthy as possible?
Wash your hands. I mean, it really is one of those things that's really important, is that when we wash our hands more often, and we try to avoid, which is really hard to do, our eyes, nose, and mouth. It's one of those things that we all can control that. And if we remember that, and if we're sick, wear a mask. And I know we all hate to wear a mask. But it's one of those things that if you're not feeling well, stay home. And if you have to go out, wear a mask. It's just really important.
That's really good advice. Yeah, and I agree. Everybody hates it, but if that's something that if you're not feeling great, I don't know. I hate the idea of that guilt that I'd feel if I got the entire office sick at this point, whether it's COVID or not, knowing how people feel about being around people that are ill, and for good reason. Patty Olinger, she is the executive director of the Global Biorisk Advisory Council and an expert on infectious diseases. Patty, thanks so much for the time this morning.
Well, thank you for having me, and stay healthy.